Well, hello, everyone, and thanks for listening to the Quality Hub, chatting with ISO experts. Welcome back, everyone, to part 2 of Cybersecurity for Beginners. I'm your host, Xavier Francis. We are here again with Brian Reich, Director of Technology here at Core, who's got years of experience in IT and security. Glad you could join us again, Brian.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
Great to have you with us. Well, let's jump right back into our discussion, Brian. All right, let's shift to the other half of the picture that you talked about, and that's the risk of being locked out of your own business, ransomware. I know it's a real threat. How much of a real threat is it for someone small like, the people we're talking to today?
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty real threat. And the reason it's a real threat is that ransomware operators don't really discriminate by company size. This can hit giant organizations. It can hit small companies, and, it can hit individuals too. Mm-hmm. It's sort of different with big and small organizations, though. A large organization is going to be intentionally and directly targeted, like I said before. Mm-hmm. But a lot of these attacks on smaller organizations are sort of going to be a spray and pray attack. They try a lot of people. They'll send out thousands of phishing emails, and whoever gets caught, right?
Right. And then they start focusing on it.
Yeah. And then for a small business, the consequences of something like this can be almost existential, right?
Yeah.
So close to home, there was a hospital that got hit with ransomware. They did recover, but it took them quite a few months from what I remember. Millions of dollars spent on the recovery and cleanup. Jobs were lost. I don't know if lives were lost because of it, but, it's a possibility being in a healthcare.
With being a hospital, yeah. So much information there that, especially if you're doing surgeries and things and their lives could be at stake.
I would hope those kind of organizations have workarounds when the computers are down, but I wasn't there.
You never know.
Yeah. And there was another case that stuck with me. So Lincoln College in Illinois, they were 157 years old when this happened. They closed their doors in May of 2022. Part of it, from what I understand, was the COVID era enrollment drops, but the tipping point for them ended up being a ransomware attack that locked them out of their admissions and their fundraising systems for months, and they couldn't recover. Like, all of the incoming money was just stopped, and they ended up closing up because of that.
And that's something that a business can really understand. If your money stops coming in and you can't produce, you're locked out of what you need to do your job. It's essential that you get back up and rolling. Like you said, it's existential. Sometimes when you're dealing with small companies, they're payroll to payroll. Mm-hmm. And if you can't get people's payroll done, how long are they going to stick with you? How long can you stay open? That's really a big issue. And these weren't just some tech naive organizations, I don't think. I mean, especially, what you need for a hospital or a college, they're just small institutions that couldn't absorb that kind of hit.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the lesson here isn't that you're going to close if you get hit by one of these things. There's lots of organizations that do survive it. But the lesson is that whether or not you survive may depend entirely on what you've done before you got attacked, right?
Okay.
Because after the attack, it's too late to do much about it other than hope you recover.
Right. So what does the setting up before thing look like?
Yeah. So there's a few things that we can talk about, but we should probably talk about backups first. That's the obvious starting point.
So tell me about backups. And I feel like everybody's like, yeah, I do them, but does anybody actually check on them or ever need to use them?
In practice, that is absolutely true. Backup you've never tested isn't a backup. It's just a hope.
Okay.
So the advice that I give is that any data that's critical for your business to be running, it ought to be backed up. And you should have a copy that lives off-site somewhere.
Okay.
Because hackers and phishing and all this stuff, those aren't the only risks that your business is going to face. There are things like floods and fires too.
Right.
You should have a backup. It should be off-site. And you should actually test restoring it every once in a while to prove that it works. If you're using a product like Microsoft 365 or Google Workspaces, there are backup add-ons that you can license that handle this stuff pretty cost-effectively and pretty simply. Mm-hmm. And it's the difference between we had a rough Tuesday and, oh, crap, we're out of business, right?
Yeah, it could be. Yeah. So when we talk about ransomware, I do want to take a little step back here. This is where somebody comes in, they get a hold of your system, information in your system, lock you out of it. They encrypt it in a way. And generally what happens is a message pops up in your thing saying, hey, if you want your data back, reach this toll-free number and we'll take credit cards in some cases. These are very high developed places. They have a call center, often located overseas. And they just want to help you get your information back from them for a price.
Yeah.
So when you're talking about backups, why this is so important is I already got a copy of that. You can kind of tell the guys to hit the road and implement a backup, unless it's not saved in a way or a place that they didn't already get a hold of.
Yep. So if your backup is stored in the same place as the rest of your customer files, what's going to happen when they ransomware your network? The backup is going to get ransomware too. It's going to get encrypted with that same key that the hackers have control of, and your backup is going to be hot garbage. So what you want to do is make sure it is stored somewhere else that's separate from your other business files. So take the backup off-site. I mean, back in the day, you would have done this with tape drives.
A tape drive, yeah. I think some places still use those.
Or removable media of some sort would probably be the way you would do it today. That's perfectly fine. Storing it in a cloud other than the one that you're doing your normal business in. Like if you're in Microsoft 365, you might want to back up to somewhere else, or at least have a separate backup product. I know in Microsoft 365, we use an add-on to that that pulls the backup somewhere else, right?
Right.
That's the key. You want it separate from your files. So when your files get encrypted by ransomware, the backup is not part of that encryption job.
Okay. And obviously, like you said earlier, if you haven't tested this, it's not a true backup.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. So let's assume we have a good, tested offsite backup. We've implemented it. We've tried it. Works. What else can we do to prepare?
Yeah. So there's still a number of things that you could do. So let's talk about the principle of least privilege.
Okay.
It means you don't give people permission to do things they don't need to do to serve their function, right?
Right.
So what does that mean in practice? It means you don't give every employee an administrator account on their own computer if they don't actually need to install software or do other administrative duties, right?
Yeah. And if that's a pain, we know it can be a pain, but Jim doesn't, Jim really likes 3D printing. And, when he's not super busy or over lunch, he likes to look at 3D printing stuff. He should be able to download 3D printing files to his work computer that might have malware in it.
Yep. Or if people do occasionally need administrative access, you can do a thing. With Microsoft 365, we have something called privileged identity management, which requires you to escalate yourself into that administrative role to make changes in the Microsoft 365 account.
Okay.
On the desktop, another thing that you can do is you can have a separate administrator account. So when somebody needs to install software, they're not running by default in administrative mode. Okay. They have to switch to that account to assume an administrative identity and do riskier things, right?
Right.
That's another way to give people the level of access they need while not running in, I'm an old school gamer, so I'll call it God mode. You don't want to be running in God mode all the time because with great power comes great responsibility.
Well, and that also makes it easier now. If they're able to log into your computer, they're an administrative as well.
Yeah.
So they can do what they want to do in some cases.
Right.
And that's one of the reasons that it's important, because if they do get malware on and they are administrator on that computer, they can do things in the back that you wouldn't even know they're doing.
That's 100% right. And another part of this, so you can even take it lower level than administrative. I mean, if you're the administrator, you can do pretty much anything on that computer or anywhere that administrative account has unfettered access over the network.
Right.
If you go down another level to just your regular employees, if their account is compromised, that account can do whatever they can do on their computer, on their network. So if they get ransomware under their regular user account, it can reach out to network drives or SharePoint sites, anything they have access to, and ransomware those files, right? So with the principle of least privilege, I also recommend don't give people access to files and systems they don't need. Right. So if they are if they're on the software team like me, do they need access to all the financial stuff? Probably not.
Right.
So don't give it to them. Now, and also consider don't give people write access to things they only need read access to as well.
Okay.
So if the ransomware hits and they only have read access to a thing that they really do only need to read, it can't go and encrypt that file.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. So those are good principles. What else?
So then there's the real boring, never-ending, incredibly important stuff, like keeping your software patched, running antivirus, keeping your firewalls enabled, and blocking traffic you don't actually need access to. Don't leave your router configured with default passwords, because those are published all over the internet.
Admin password? Admin?
Yeah, yep. And keep your Wi-Fi secure and private.
Yeah. One thing we do here, I know, is we have an what's called an IoT network where it doesn't hit any of our stuff. It's only like devices that we use to turn on lights and things like that. So any of that stuff can't have access.
Yep.
All right. I'm assuming you also need a plan for what happens in the moment, like the network goes down at 2 a.m., who gets called, who's doing what, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, you should have a plan for that. And it doesn't have to be complicated. So for a 5-person business, the whole disaster recovery plan can fit on an index card. Who do you call first? Usually it's going to be your IT person or your managed service provider if you're outsourcing those responsibilities.
Okay.
Then call the boss or the owner. If you have cyber insurance, it might include them as well.
Right.
If money happened to be moved in whatever this attack was, maybe you got to call the bank. You've got to write this stuff down because nobody's going to remember it in the moment.
Yeah. You're too busy reeling from, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And then trying to figure out what's after that. It's really what's practical.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned cyber insurance. Is it worth it for a small business? I've not looked into it. I don't know what we're looking at cost-wise, but what do you think?
Yeah, it's a good question. So cyber insurance does have its uses, especially for small business, because the cost of the incident could wipe you out and the policy can help you survive that.
Okay.
Right. The other thing worth knowing, and this does loop back to everything else we talked about, is that over the last couple of years, most major cyber insurance carriers, they've added requirements that you implement things like multi-factor authentication and backups and testing your backups, which means that these responsible practices, they're the price of admission for getting cyber insurance now.
Gotcha. And it makes sense. They just don't want to let somebody that doesn't take care of anything away and insure you.
Yeah, you're
that's like the
higher risk.
Exactly. So everything really does connect back to the same handful of fundamentals.
Yeah, it really does. So strong passwords, multi-factor authentication, basic network hygiene and maintenance, that phone call rule that I talked about, backups, and having a plan for when things go wrong.
Yeah. And letting your, what we would call in bigger business policies, if you're in a 5-man machine shop, policy sounds a little different than it does if you're in a corporate world, kind of thing. But that's important, let your employees know, hey, this is just to protect everybody.
Yeah.
It's not to make your life difficult. We know it's annoying. Yes, you have to. Why do I have to have my phone I'm not supposed to be on my phone, but now I have to have my phone to log in for my, my multi-factor authentication. Well, you're going to have to make some policy changes on that and say, okay, you can have your phone now, or however you choose to do that. It's going to take some thought to get all these things in place, but it really is going to save you in the long run because it's more of a matter of when than if.
Yeah.
These have been some really good points today. Any last thoughts that you want to leave with our listeners?
Yeah. So I'd make this my last point. You shouldn't let the word cybersecurity scare you into doing absolutely nothing. The absolute basics of it, multi-factor authentication on your email, the phone call rule, testing backups, who to call at 2 a.m. A lot of this stuff is free or pretty close to it, right? Yeah, they honestly, they block the overwhelming majority of what you're actually going to come into contact with. So you don't need to be an expert. You just need to do the basics. And if you don't have the bandwidth to deal with these bare necessities, get yourself a good MSP.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So for those of us that already use Microsoft 365 at the center of your business, Google Workspaces as the center of your business, you can meet pretty much all of these baselines with the vendor you've already got with minimal additional cost.
Yeah. And, one thing we want to talk about here at Core is we help people in this manner with 27001, which isn't a big step removed from what we're talking about today, but being certified that way, CMMC, which are some serious requirements for DoD. So we certainly can help you, if you even want to reach out to us. Really great information, Brian. Thanks for being here today with us.
Thanks for having me, X.
Absolutely. And we want to thank everyone who's listened to our podcast today. We hope it's been informative for you. And if you're looking for more information about Core Business Solutions, how we can help you with ISO certification, cybersecurity, or even customized training, please email us at info@thecoresolution.com. You can also visit our website at www.thecoresolution.com. And if you haven't already followed us on your favorite podcast platform or YouTube, be sure to do so. That way you won't miss the next Quality Hub podcast when it's dropped next week. Have a great day, everyone.